Shaw! Shaw! De! Hut! Shaw! De! Hut! De! Hut! Shaw!
I once made a video seeing Hollow Knight as a Souls-like, saying that Hollow Knight is like the Souls games. One's a third-person action RPG and the other's a platformer Metroidvania, but they're similar in philosophy and design. Playing Hollow Knight Silksong, I felt distanced from that opinion. Words like Souls-like and roguelike invite annoying online arguments. I've personally been guilty of trying to define terms like these and defend my definition as if it matters. Now I want to say that discussion about genre is an endless rabbit hole that is muddled, confused, and ultimately unproductive. We'll be peering into this rabbit hole just a bit in this video. Indie games have become way more relevant in the past 10 to 15 years, a select few earning enough mainstream praise to enter an elite upper echelon, the indie darlings. In a lot of games presentations now, there's a place for indie games to be in the spotlight. Hollow Knight and Hades are two examples, games lucky enough to stand on these pedestals, becoming revered, refreshingly original, contrasting with the slop. Now they both have sequels, which begs some questions. A sequel is naturally an evolution from the foundation that the predecessor establishes. Is this to the detriment of creativity? What is the ideal purpose of a sequel? What should it accomplish? Does the first game become obsolete? In contrast with AAA sequels, indie sequels genuinely need to grapple with these questions. They don't have the benefit of huge marketing campaigns. If their first game was impressive for its originality, the sequel needs to be original too, channeling what captured their audience's attention to begin with. When indie sequels are scrutinized to be as inventive in design as their predecessors, developers are spurred to stretch what defines their genre. This is where the best kind of innovation in game design happens. Hollow Knight, developed in Australia by a team of 3 to 4, funded by over 2,000 backers on Kickstarter, is very indie. One of the most darling indies ever. It's a 2D action-adventure platformer, but more than that, it's a Metroidvania. Metroid, Castlevania 2, Super Metroid, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night are emblem bearers for this genre. In brief, these games are defined by progression that is ultimately linear, but non-linear in ways, the collection of key items to open up portions of the map, and above all, exploration. But how does Silksong go further beyond its predecessor? How does it push its genre forward? Metroidvanias have been nearly entirely abandoned by AAA publishers, so Hollow Knight was renowned for scratching the Metroidvania itch for so many people. Team Cherry, aware of the genre's deprived fanbase, knew that they'd be praised for offering more of the same kind of gameplay in a new world. Silksong was even going to be DLC for Hollow Knight, and it grew in scope until becoming a standalone game. Sure, development took many years,
No news to report for Silksong today.
but the hype never really died, and now the scope of this project is easily the most impressive thing about it. Silksong is a Metroidvania through and through, with details and secrets to discover at every corner of the game's deeply built, lore-filled map, featuring a diverse set of areas to get lost in. Mysterious environments and charming characters are brought to life by Ari Gibson's art and animation, accompanied by a great soundtrack by Christopher Larkin. Hollow Knight was difficult, and Silksong is even more so. You'll go for long stretches without a checkpoint, you'll die repeatedly in the same place, and your physical dexterity will be tested. Its difficulty has even led to some negative reception. But this isn't unprecedented. Metroidvanias are often difficult, and this is a game that honors its forebears. It's a monumental adventure that's best approached patiently. In my playthrough, I felt a nostalgic curiosity compelling me to slowly take in every little detail of the lovingly crafted world. I'm nostalgic for Hollow Knight, but also the art is hand-drawn and reminds me of what I used to draw as a kid, so I appreciate every enemy, every character design, and all of Hornet's dynamic poses. Simple designs, but overflowing with personality. I stepped through Moss Grotto happily, content with clinking Hornet's nail against every wall to look for secrets. At this point, I have no idea what the game really has in store for me. As it unravels, I smile, I laugh, I feel surprise, joy, inspiration, and despair. I'm frustrated, I'm devastated even, and continuously seeing new areas, I'm shocked at the size of Team Cherry's achievement, making something that invokes a vast tapestry of emotions that puts me squarely in the shoes of a hero on an epic journey. I could glaze Silksong for longer than necessary, but its prequel was easily more revolutionary. This is what my previous video that I mentioned discussed, that Hollow Knight applied a fresh Souls-style attitude towards death and world-building to the Metroidvania genre. Inversely, there are some who even consider Dark Souls to be a Metroidvania. You open shortcuts, you fight challenging and sometimes optional bosses to progress, and you're urged to explore. All very Metroidvania-esque elements. My opinion now is that picking apart genres like this only satisfies gamers that use exclusionary vocabulary to seem enlightened and based. I engaged in the argument with a literal interpretation. A game is Soulslike if it is like Dark Souls, and a game is roguelike if it's like Rogue. But genres naturally evolve and morph. Now there are games considered roguelike that are nothing like Rogue, which makes the name for the genre flawed, but that's okay. We've ended up with these terms, and they're widely used, so it's better to just accept that we're stuck with them, stop arguing about it in Reddit threads, and suck it up. As a Metroidvania, Silksong didn't revolutionize like its prequel, but it raised the bar, even compared to any AAA Metroidvania, and it deserves to be celebrated. Hades 2 is similar as a sequel to Silksong. Both follow up revered darlings, featuring a female protagonist, bigger scope, and more complex mechanics built on the foundation of their prequels. Notable that compared to Team Cherry's very small size, Supergiant has 26 members listed on their website. Their work isn't compromised by the interests of publishers, they have a strong authorial voice, but Supergiant is far less indie than Team Cherry. It doesn't matter. I'd rather not argue about whether or not independent development is a spectrum. I'll avoid the distinction between roguelike and roguelite too. I've wasted enough breath on that argument. Hades 2 is a roguelike, in which, much like the prequel, you dash around and fight through the Greek underworld, collecting power-ups styled after Olympian gods and having fully voice-acted conversations with the large cast of characters.
Indeed, Lord Charon.
It's fast, fun, and artistically impressive. Creative character designs with beautiful portraits, a plot that's engaging despite the game being run-based, and of course, the soundtrack by Darren Korb is a vital component. Again, let's ask, how does it advance its series and genre? To best answer that in comparison to Silksong, we should acknowledge that, recently, far more developers have been making games like Hades. This means that Hades 2 is entering a category where it's difficult to stand out and be unique. Hades 2's battle system is similar to the first game, and you'll interact with a lot of the same stuff that was proven to be fun from the first time around.
Brilliant.
But there's more to do in between runs. Level variety through choosing between two paths with fully unique enemies, events, and more. And Melanoe has a magic bar that can be used to charge attacks for different effects. You'll enjoy the improvements in the sequel systems more if you've played the prequel, and beyond that, the continuation of the plot is an important aspect to consider. I'd assert that the Hades series has a bit of visual novel in its DNA, which is what makes it so special. The sheer amount of unique lines is shocking, with characters reacting to small steps forward through the story and to decisions within your runs. At the time of writing this, I've only played Hades 2's early access, so even my impressions are incomplete, not having seen the resolution of Melanoe's adventure. This has probably skewed my perspective a bit, where after playing Silksong, I thought of it as a superior indie sequel compared to Hades 2. I like gameplay, and when it stands on its own without needing narrative to be engaging, but I want to avoid sounding overly negative about this game because it is really very good and fun and well made. As sequels, they're both impressive in accomplishing different goals. I love Hades 2, and I love Silksong. I love gaming. What is a genre? Can Metroidvanias be 3D? Will the term roguelite ever be adopted with legitimacy? There's just not enough time to address these questions. I'll address this. Are sequels by their nature to the detriment of creativity? A little. This is especially prevalent in AAA franchises with yearly releases which feel more like revenue-generating machines than games. But indie games are a step above in terms of originality, which puts indie sequels in a strange position. Silksong and Hades 2 make their predecessors seem somewhat simple and modest in comparison, but neither is as groundbreaking as their first games. They serve to show that there was more to say within the revolutionary framework that the prequel established. Despite loving Hollow Knight, maybe I didn't appreciate its unique qualities enough. Just boiling my thoughts down to comparison through genre. Souls-esque mechanics don't define these games. It's about exploration, grand scope, and difficulty. It invited me to delve into the world with childlike curiosity and excitement, testing my skill and patience, and, truthfully, It made me feel like a kid again, which is among the best things that a video game can do. Hades 2 can be reduced to another action roguelike in a market that's oversaturated with them. But that ignores the best part, which is the ebb and flow between the action, the story, and the base management. Supergiant achieved a balance between all of these systems such that it somehow doesn't feel bloated. The gameplay loop is multifaceted, and it can be enjoyed from many different angles. With both these games and all games, playing them too quickly is the enemy of genuine good faith critique and review. You control the buttons you press, so you can skip all dialogue in Hades 2, but you'll miss out on so much. You can rush to 100% Silksong to flex your gamer skills, but you won't savor the experience. I think that's where a lot of the game's negative reviews stem from people who didn't sip the fine wine, they chugged it. Regarding genre, I ask that we don't let these names that are just meant to categorize reduce our conversations about games. People are often eager to fit things into recognizable boxes, but games are becoming increasingly complex, such that genre discussion is becoming harder to approach. Breaking down genres and defining everything by what it's similar to diminishes what each game does uniquely. Terms like Soulslike and roguelike are imperfect, but to an extent we have to just embrace that they exist. All I ask is that we try to describe games by their unique qualities in a way that invites discussion, and not reduce them to genre. Thank you for watching.